Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for One Piece episode 925. And yeah, I don't know what was going on this week, but it was like I I think I know why, but weirdly enough, I the the, the episode the episode on Crunchyroll released a little later than usually at like 8, but because I have a premium membership, I normally get it at like 7:30, but it released like a little later. Again, probably because of the CV situation, but yeah, just a little weird how that all worked out. Um, but anyway, okay, so talking about One Piece episode 925. So obviously, first thing to talk about is the fight of Sanji, aka Soba Mask, versus Page One, and just like I predicted from last week's preview, the art and animation just in that just in this whole fight was just insane. Like it was like it honestly, this was probably definitely one of the better animated fights like post time skip I've seen. Like just seeing Sanji go in, kick some ass, like with the raid suit, it was just epic. As it was just epic on all fronts. Um, and like and it just like and the thing about the art and animation here is that it just perfectly captured the amount of power and speed that was granted to Sanji by the person's raid suit. Also, this just the Sakuga transformation was just absolutely lip smacking. Like just how beautiful that one transformation was. This is an episode that's basically worth the price of seeing it. Just it's incredible, yeah. Um, and now in terms of getting into the fight itself, like art and animation, beautiful, insane, just off the charts, nuts. But I will admit, when it comes to the fight itself and the whole idea of Sanji using the raid suit, I will admit I was one of the very few who wasn't the biggest fan of Sanji from using the raid suit, just because I was I was one of those oldies who thought he was strong enough on his own and he didn't need the raid suit in order to make him more powerful. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the suit itself does perfectly complement his abilities without overshadowing his actual skills in some respects. Like I will admit I will admit the invisibility thing is still a little overblown to me, but is blowing it a little bit, but it doesn't the suit itself, it doesn't really get in the way of what Sanji's actual skills are, uh, especially after watching this episode. And the one thing, and especially after watching this episode, I came to realize that yeah, the suit, it doesn't really get in the way of what Sanji's actual skill level or abilities are. That it just complements it perfectly. Um, Uh, Now, and one thing I hadn't taken into account either when this first happened in the manga is that, well, it's fucking Kaido, and whether me or Sanji liked it or not, the Straw Hats would need as much power on their side to take on anything Kaido could throw at them. And while I still believe that Sanji could still have taken Page One without the suit, I imagine it would have been a lot more difficult fight if Sanji hadn't used it. So yeah, it's kind of a weird paradox for me where I hated it when I was reading in the manga, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, okay, yeah, this is the new world. This is Kaido. You're gonna need as much help and as much power on your side as you can get, and the raid suit is like the perfect upgrade for Sanji in order to take on Kaido's men. And going off something I said last week about the possibility of like about King and about King and Sanji having a fight together. One of my expectations going forward, if Sanji's going to continue using the raid suit, is I think we actually got it, but I could not have been paying attention properly. But I want to see I want to see how he uses his Diable Jambe more in that suit. Like I'm sure we'll probably heat the suit up a bit, so I can't use it a lot. But I really want to see how he uses Diable Jambe while in that suit a lot more. Um, like it would be interesting to see how he combines the raid suit with his fire like kicks and whatnot. Um, and okay, and of course, one thing with this episode, like honestly, this is one of those episodes where the fight in itself between Sanji and Page One was epic and insane and whatnot. But honestly, this is also one of those episodes where where the episode itself it could just as easily be like pretty much Law having a nerdy fanboy moment because that's the other thing about this. That's essentially what this episode was outside of the Sanji Page One fight is that it the focus of this episode in many respects was just Law having a nerdy fanboy moment for like for basically from witnessing just like Germa's technology in action, and it's kind of I never like I always knew Law's character had a bit of a comedic side to him, but just seeing him be like a total nerd, an otaku and fanboy for like for like Germa for like Sanji's raid suit, it's kind of hilarious. The only thing that rivals it is seeing him and Sanji having like this at the same time having this whole paradoxical thing of even though he likes the even though Law likes the number 3 suit specifically, he and Sanji still have this mutual disdain for basically Germa 66 itself. And yeah, and of course seeing everyone collectively facepalm at the Soba Mass name together, it again this whole thing with this whole thing between with Law's like nerdy comment geeky commentary and just all the other little things surrounding it, it's like the perfectly written joke. It's like the perfectly written joke, and seriously, if you ever want an episode that I think perfectly cements One Piece's comedic chops while at the same time being action packed, I think this is one of them. At least when it comes to post time skip for me, like yeah, just adding nerdy Law in there again, it's hilarious. What can I say? Now, aside from that, there wasn't too much more to talk about with this episode, and I will admit that is its one flaw that for as action packed and epic as it was, the pacing itself was fairly stagnant, focusing mainly on the fight between Sanji and Page One. But I do like how within this episode we still managed to get little moments of character progression. We thought we're really only supposed we thought originally we're only supposed to be little one-off jokes. Like again, mentioning the invisibility, we basically see that with the raid suit and Sanji being able to turn invisible with it, like Sanji's goal of wanting to be invisible has been accomplished now, and he didn't even need the devil fruit for it, so he can have invisibility and still swim at the same time. And yeah, Sanji, I think you might want to use that that invisibility power a little more wisely. Just saying, bro. Just saying. But yeah, and honestly, it's not even one of those things where honestly the pacing itself wasn't really a distraction this time around. Like it was just one of those things where the episode itself, it didn't really go anywhere. Like the episode itself, it was still very entertaining. But as far as the pacing, it didn't really get anywhere too big. I suppose that's the one draw with it, is that it was entertaining. Just the pacing didn't really go too far anywhere, I guess. Of course, one other thing to talk about with this episode is that in Robin's search for records about Wano's history, we see that she ends up being cornered by Orochi's Obi Wawanchu. And the thing is, honestly, even if she managed to escape, wink wink, you really have to the one thing with basically with Orochi's like ninjas like cornering Robin like this, you really have to take into account the significance of this moment. Like barring the whole Eni's lobby debacle, Robin is someone who largely has successfully evaded the world government for decades of her life, but in this for like 2 decades of her life practically. But in this one single moment, she basically got cornered by a group of ninja. That in itself, it shows how different a country Wano actually is. So yeah, it's kind of just elevating the threat in a lot of ways with her being cornered like this. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Illustrator Control. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.